It's about that time where we have to get into some player breakdowns as James Wood was the Nationals' breakout star, but I'm going to tell you why he can even be better in 2026.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And yes, I'm your host, Ryan Clary. You can catch me over on Twitter at RyanClary11, and as well as our show page at LO_Nationals. And later on in today's show, Nationals' new president of baseball ops, Paul Toboni, was actually almost the GM of another team. We'll discuss that because if I'm a Nats fan, I would feel good about that decision. So stay tuned for that later on in the show today. And in the second segment, where can James Wood improve his game? What exactly should you be looking for him to improve on in 2026? I've got a couple ideas and some key numbers that you should watch out for entering this offseason. But we start off discussing a breakdown of James Wood's 2025 season. And the Nationals, quite frankly, in my opinion, you have got the face of the franchise here right now with James Wood. So I'll tell you why about that. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. So I'm going to tell you why. What James Wood did this season was one of the better seasons for a Washington Nationals in, quite frankly, probably years, since Juan Soto was a National back in 2021. That's really what it was like watching James Wood this season. The first thing on paper here, in his first full year, for James Wood to do what he did this season, become an all-star, compete in the home run derby, having a lead at one point in the home run race, James Wood was incredible. In the expectations of Wood this season, quite frankly, he blew right by them. I expected James Wood to hit 30-plus home runs. He hit 31 this season. I expected James Wood to have a little bit lower of a slug than a 475. I believe I had him at around a 460 before this season even got started. This season, James Wood proved that he has power, not just to right field, not just to center field, but also that opposite field power. If you look at his baseball savant page and look at his 2025 hit spray chart, most of his home runs went into that left center field area. The red porch over at Nationals Park, you have seen it. That is where James Wood lived this year. And if you think about hitters at Nationals Park and who have kind of had those traits as a left-handed hitter, it's kind of ironic, but you think of Juan Soto. I'm not here to tell you that James Wood is Juan Soto. I think Juan Soto is a much better bat overall than James Wood, but I think James Wood does provide more power. And I think James Wood is a better overall power hitter than Juan Soto. I do believe in that. And quite frankly, I don't even think that's really up for debate at this point. What James Wood brought to me this season was the fact that I have hope that James Wood could hit 40-plus home runs in a single season. What we believed was someone that was going to come in here and be a top face of the franchise kind of guy. He lived up to those expectations throughout the first half. The second half was a different story. The second half, we saw a completely different version of James Wood. You saw the strikeout rate at times clipping nearly 45% of his at-bats back in August. You saw the home run rate. He only had 3 home runs in the second half by the middle of September. The struggles were real in the second half, and that is why some of his numbers, you may look at them and say, well, they're good, but they could have been much better. Looking at his first half compared to what the second half was, I mean, it is a night and day difference. The first half, he was batting .278 with a .915 OPS and 24 home runs in his first 95 games played. That is insane. whichever way that you look at it. And then in the second half, he had a 690 OPS. He had 105 strikeouts in just 62 games and 242 at-bats. Do the math there. That is a ton of strikeouts for James Wood. What I want to see moving forward is, number one, a much more disciplined bat. Because as we saw this season, with Wood in particular here, his whiff percentage is pretty bad, which led to a lot of strikeouts this season. And again, he was only a few strikeouts away from setting the single season all-time strikeout record broken by Mark Reynolds back in 2009, I believe, with the Arizona Diamondbacks. But this is still someone that, in my mind, I look at the first half and what he brought to the table here. You saw the power. You saw the improvement defensively. You saw him run the bases really well at times. You saw him hit for average. That is one thing about his game that, quite frankly, I wasn't really expecting. I did not expect James Wood to have a very high batting average at all, to be honest with you. And I look at him right now, and again, the first half was something special, batting north of 270 as your first full season in Major League Baseball for someone who is not necessarily a contact hitter, but he certainly showed that he could be that down the road. He finished the season with a 256 batting average, but the number that I want to focus in on is his slug and also his expected slug, according to Baseball Savant. His expected slug was in the 84th percentile. That is something that you are going to build on for this team. And not even to mention his average exit velo in the 98th percentile for the Washington Nationals. That is insane for a 22-year-old kind of toolsy guy to do all that. The most impressive feat, we could talk about the home runs, and you can talk about the hitting for average and the capabilities that he has and some of the tools that really just meshes with today's game. But one thing that I did not expect from Wood was this: the improvement that he had defensively. Last year, there were some real concerns on my end regarding what he could be down the road. Is he that good of an outfielder? Will we have to move him over to first base? You will not have to move him over to first base. The improvements that he made this season defensively was really, really steep in my opinion. And again, looking at his arm strength, he has an above average arm in left field. We saw that pop earlier on this season when he was going up against the Miami Marlins, actually just a few weeks ago, back in the middle of September. He had that throw that was going to be the game-tying run by the Marlins. James Wood lasers one home to make the second out in the ninth inning. The Nationals went on to win that game with Jose Frere closing the door. That is a play right there that James Wood simply does not make as a rookie with the Nationals last year. And now with this, you actually have someone to work with. You have someone that you can actually say, this is a good left fielder. He is someone that covers ground pretty well, even though his range may not say that. I still believe that James Wood does cover a lot more ground than what it may indicate. He has a good arm. He has solid accuracy with his arm as well. This is someone who took a lot of coaching in the offseason defensively because he was not comfortable out in left field. He was always in right and played in center field for the most part in the minors, and then got moved over to left field. And last year, he just looked lost. But this season, the turnaround defensively may have been the biggest improvement in James Wood's game from 2024 heading into 2025. And so what I see from this season, this was an all-star campaign. This is someone that you can build around. This is someone that I think is the face of this franchise. This is also someone that can hit 40-plus home runs. This is your modern-day guy. When we talk about the potential of some of these guys out there, not a lot of them reach their actual ceiling. I feel confident in Wood actually reaching his ceiling. And I feel confident in the fact that this is going to be your best player for the Nationals for hopefully the next 6+ seasons. Because he's under contract here. We're not going to trade him anytime soon. And this, in my opinion, is the face of the franchise. It starts with James Wood. So with that being said, What does he have to improve on? And what does he have to get better at? I've got some thoughts. I'll tell you that after this. And yes, the NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get 300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. And I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I've built parlays, tried player props, and even followed the live lines during games, and it makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. And whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience much better when you're sitting there watching your couch and making some money while you watch some football. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app and get started. Again, visit FanDuel.com and download the FanDuel app. Again, FanDuel.com. Download America's #1 sportsbook. That is FanDuel.com. And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. And if you have not done so already, make sure to look up Locked On Nationals wherever you get your podcast, whether it's on Apple, Spotify, and of course the video version over on YouTube. Again, just look up Locked On Nationals. So James Wood is the face of this franchise, obviously speaking here. But where does he have to improve? Right now, the thing that I just get caught up on is the strikeouts. And I've always been on the record of saying this. If you are going to hit 30, 40 plus home runs in a single season, you can strike out as much as you want. That comes with the territory. But James Wood is actually better than just a power hitter. I think James Wood has the ability to hit for average and the ability to hit for power and the ability to get on base more. That was kind of not figured out this season. We saw it a lot in the first half this year. We saw James Wood drawing a lot of walks, not striking out at a crazy, insane rate. We saw that in the second half, unfortunately. But I think what kind of led to those strikeouts was, number one, his approach. One thing that I simply could not get over with Wood's game this season was he was taking way too many strikes in the zone. And in my opinion, I think that kind of goes to show you that pitchers figured him out. James Wood was not going to take any of the off-speed pitches and the breaking pitches. He was there to sit on fastballs and hit them the opposite way into left center field. That was his mentality each and every single time out there. If you were going to give him a fastball in the zone when he was thinking of fastball, he is going to hit that baseball, and he's going to hit it wherever he wants to. That is one of the better qualities of his game. Now, one of the worst qualities of his game is looking at breaking balls in the zone. What led to such a high strikeout rate was the fact that pitchers realized he was going to stay away from the breaking stuff. He was going to stay away from your curveball. He was not going to take at your changeup in the zone. He was sitting there on fastballs, and pitchers figured that out. So what did they do? They stopped throwing him fastballs. That approach right there led to all the strikeouts that we all saw from him in the second half. Again, at times, he was striking out in 50% of his at-bats. Like, the strikeout problem in the second half was a very real issue. But here's the issue that lies with that overall strikeout issue that he has, is his approach. Once you are figured out as a major leaguer, and once they kind of figure out, well, this is what's going to happen, and here's how this hitter is going to attack a pitcher, James Wood is going to go in there and swing at a fastball. They are obviously going to make him chase and make him whiff on a ton of breaking pitches, and that is exactly what they did. James Wood is going to have to find a way to be a sustainable power hitter in today's game to figure out how to hit breaking pitches. That is an issue that you see across baseball, by the way. There's a lot of with these younger guys, like Dylan Cruz, for instance. He did not hit the breaking pitch at all, and this has been an issue stemming back to his LSU days. So with these young players, Obviously, the major league level is completely different than the minor leagues and the college and obviously the high school levels as well. James Wood is going to have to figure out ways to not look at strikes in the zone. Way too many times this season, I'll see a 2-2 count, and it's like, okay, the pitcher is not going to give him a fastball in the zone. It doesn't matter how desperate they are. They know that James Wood will be able to hit a fastball in the zone, hit it to the left center field gap, and maybe put one over into the seats there. How can we get this guy out? Well, we're going to throw a breaking pitch in the zone. It's going to start off on the righty batter's box. It's going to finish in the zone. He's not going to take it. I saw way too many strikeouts like that in the second half. So he's going to have to figure out a way to fix that approach. This offseason, James Wood has to improve on hitting breaking pitches. That is what led to such a high strikeout rate. And I think he will do that because this guy is a much better hitter than even what was advertised down in the minor leagues. He can hit for average. He can hit for power. He's going to get on base. He does everything that you would want a premier offensive bat to do. But he has to improve his discipline at the plate. And with that in mind, take those pitches and figure out what to do with them. Some of the game's best hitters, I think of Shohei Ohtani. I think of Juan Soto. I think of guys like Luis Arias as well. They take those pitches and they make them go the other way. Or they have that inside-out swing where people are going to try to jam him and he's flicking it over the shortstop's head. James has to figure out the ability to do that. And that is really, in my opinion, what holds him back a lot. And obviously, that's not just the only thing at this point. He had a pretty high ground ball rate this season as well. I think if James Wood is able to elevate some of the baseballs more, you will see 40-plus home runs easily, in my opinion. But also, I just want to see more aggressive hitting. James Wood is so good because of what he is. And again, he is a much better hitter than what a lot of people have probably anticipated over the years. But I think with where he stands today, if you can get a much more disciplined Wood and also just within the zone, figuring out what he does well and what he doesn't do well, you will see a much more aggressive hitter. Because at times, again, going back to off-speed pitches and breaking pitches with him, he just looked lost at times this year. I want to see what he can do now with a 100% full-on healthy offseason under this new staff with Toboni leading the way, and maybe see if they can make a tweak within his swing and make a tweak within the timing of things. Because I do believe that when you do figure out hitters, it's hard for just a professional hitter to go against some of the pitching that we have seen nowadays. Guys are throwing 100+ miles per hour. When they come up with an 85 mile per hour curveball, it's impossible to make that timing adjustment. And with the movement that some of these pitches have nowadays, it is hard to hit for average in today's game. It just is. So I don't think James Wood will ever be a 320 batting average kind of guy. But I do think he had left a ton on the table for the Nationals this season. And I do think that James Wood will definitely improve on this specific category. Because quite frankly, he has to. Pitchers will figure you out. And in the second half, they did. That is exactly why we saw James Wood strike out in nearly 50% of his at-bats. That is why you almost saw him break the all-time single-season strikeout record. It's because pitchers figured him out. And he will make improvements. We have seen this time and time again. As Wood gets more aggressive at the plate and stops looking at these curveballs in the zone or a slider in the zone, that is when you will see the best version of James Wood out there. And I do believe that the Nationals still have something special here, and you will be able to reap the benefits of a star player right here back in the nation's capital. So thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And next, let's get into this. Paul Toboni, the Nationals president of baseball operations, almost got a job with another team. And then the Nationals swooped in and got him. So let's talk about that because I think it's wildly interesting. We'll tell you about which team that was and who he took the Nationals over. We'll tell you after that. And yes, let me tell you about our friends at Monarch Money. And most people cannot name all their financial accounts or even what they are worth, whether it's 401k properties or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. And that's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. And Monarch is built for people with busy lives. And if you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you, and you can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without even touching a spreadsheet. And you can identify that you aren't saving as much as you thought. Monarch helps you notice an inefficient investment allocation and discover forgotten 401ks from past jobs. Monarch Money is just that easy, and you can maximize your finances again with Monarch Money. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB. And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And so we were talking about the Washington Nationals hiring their new president of baseball operations just a few weeks ago with President Paul Toboni, the 35-year-old boy genius. And it turns out that the Nationals were not the only team trying to get him to run the baseball operations. And in fact, it was the Boston Red Sox. The Boston Red Sox, who Paul Toboni was coming from originally as the assistant general manager and kind of like their head of player development, oversaw their minor league scouting. He did everything there in Boston. It turns out that today a story came out that the Red Sox and president of baseball ops, Craig Breslow, were opening the GM position just for him to take this job so another organization would not pluck him. Meaning that the Red Sox had their full intention set on keeping Toboni in Boston. The Nationals obviously slid in last second as the Red Sox were going to be naming Toboni as the GM of the Red Sox. And the Nationals said, you know what? We're going to make you the president of baseball operations, and you're going to be the guy to run this operation for hopefully the next decade plus. I'm not saying that the Nationals are the better organization, but this is certainly a win going up against a big market like Boston, a team that is ready to win, a team that unfortunately did just lose the wild card round, but still they have a ton of promise for the future, and they have a huge offseason ahead for them. But speaking of Toboni probably would have stayed in Boston if the Nationals were just like, we're going to make you the GM here. He probably would have said, I'm okay for that right now. I'm going to take this Red Sox job. I already know this place. I've been here for a while. And quite frankly, they're more ready to win than what we are. He probably would have found a president job elsewhere in a handful of years down the road. But the Nationals, they put their cards on the table and said, we're going to make you the president of baseball operations. We're going to give you more money. You're going to have more power, and you're going to have the final say with anything that has to do under the baseball operations umbrella. That is a really tricky decision by the Lerner family. But kudos to them for doing that because, listen, we haven't really talked about it this much, but taking a gamble on someone who has not run a baseball operations department by himself before is a risky decision regardless. They bypassed the fact that he has not been a full-on GM before. And they said, well, we're going to make you our president of baseball ops here in town. Now, I guess you can kind of read between the lines. Obviously, with the Red Sox, they were going to be making him the GM this season, and that was his next step. But the Nationals skipped that next step. And you could say, well, he was the de facto GM with the Red Sox. Sure, I guess, but he never had that title. So it's kind of hard for me to be like, well, he was basically the GM. I guess he was, but really everything came down to what Craig Breslow wanted with the Red Sox. And so with the Nationals right now, you got to feel pretty good about this hire. A team that is very well off, a team that is killed in the player development side, they were going to be making him one of the main guys in charge running their baseball operations department. The Nationals now have that guy. And again, that is a successful organization that he is coming from, who has had that player development monster that he has said in his opening press conference just this past week. So seeing what the Nationals have done now with what Toboni could be, I feel good about this. And I thought that this would be coming because Toboni was not going to be the best kept secret up in Boston. That would have gotten out eventually. And fortunately for the Nationals, it did. And now you have a really promising president of baseball ops here in town that is going to be overseeing the day-to-day operations and overseeing your next manager, your next pitching coach, the next hitting coach, the next manager, everything. Toboni will be leading the way. So I feel good about that. That was a pretty cool story. I wanted to share that with you guys here on Locked On Nationals. So Toboni, he is a wanted figure here in town, and the Nationals, luckily for them, they've got that figure in mind. So thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And yes, playoff baseball is back tonight. The Brewers are up 1-0, and also the Dodgers are up 1-0 in their series as well. So catch some postseason baseball tonight. It'll be a fun one, as you have seen the Phillies choke off in game 1. So I will catch you guys on the flip side. Have a good one. Go Nats.